All right, guys, this is just a quick little overview of books 1, 5, and 9 because I noticed that some of you were having some difficulty. So, in book 1 of the Odyssey, um, basically, we find out that uh, Athena is talking to Zeus about Odysseus and about how she wants him to be allowed to go home. Okay. And she's like, he's stuck with the nymph Calypso. It's been like a really long time. He needs to go home. So then um, Zeus kind of reminds him, hey, well, I don't have a problem with Odysseus, but he did blind Poseidon's son Polyphemus. So that's why, there are some problems. But um, let's see, but Athena keeps like pushing and trying to like make sure that the gods will let Odysseus go home, and she begs her father Zeus, and she tells her father to have Hermes go see Calypso and tell Calypso that she has to let him go. So that's kind of how that all happens, all right? And then she says that she's going to go in the meantime to see Telemachus, which is Odysseus' son, and she's going to try to give him some advice with all these suitors, all these men that are trying to marry his mom back in Ithaca. So when you saw this little smoke come down, this came from the heavens above, and it's actually Athena who is disguised as a warrior, I guess. Okay. So he comes in and he meets Telemachus, and Telemachus is really friendly to him. All right. And Telemachus, again, is Odysseus' son. They come, they sit, they eat, and all these other men are there, these suitors. You'll see that they're just all eating and hanging out. Telemachus is frustrated. He's annoyed at these suitors. He thinks that they are just here to, like, be savages and take what's not theirs, right? And so then this man, which is actually Athena in disguise, tells him that he has fought with his father and that he's an old friend of his father. And so, like, Telemachus kind of gets like nostalgic and he's like, oh, tell me about my dad. And he's like, oh, your dad was so great. And he's sad, okay? And then he starts thinking about his dad's return, and he actually doesn't think it's gonna happen. He's like, "Maybe, I'm never going to get to see my father," right? So, he's very frustrated again at these suitors because they're trying to marry his mother, and they don't care about eating and drinking all of the food that's in the house and that it's not theirs, okay? So, here he gets some advice, I guess, from Athena, aka this person in disguise, and tells him what he should do. So he gives Telemachus advice. He tells him that he should get rid of these men, like call them out, tell them like you guys got to get out of here. Then he should pray to the gods, and then he should take a ship to get some news about his father. Go to Pylos, where King Nestor is, and then Menelaus, who's in Sparta, and to get some information about his father. So those are a bunch of things that he tells him. So they shake hands, and poof, he disappears. All right, that's kind of for Telemachus to realize that this was the gods that were helping him. But if you see his face, he's like super confused, like what just happened? Okay, because the man just disappeared. And so that kind of gives him courage to talk to the men, and then the mom comes out. She's sad and upset. So this is Penelope. This is Odysseus' wife, Telemachus' mom. Um, she comes out and she's like, "Don't play that song. That song makes me sad." And so Telemachus tells him it's not the guy's fault. Like, listen, we have to get through this. So here are the men disregarding everything, the suitors. And so he goes ahead and he tells them, "Listen, you guys be quiet. Let the musician do what he wants to do, and you drain your cup and get out of here." They kind of laugh at him and they're like, "Oh, who gave you all this authority all of a sudden?" And they ignore him. So that's the end of book one. This was the repeat of book one in the original version. So in here, you found out some additional details. You found out um, that Odysseus is out in sea and that he is trying very hard to bring his shipmates home, but that doesn't happen because they are reckless and they all get destroyed. All of them die. He's the only one that is alive. That kind of happens because they eat the cattle of Lord Helios. Then you go down here and it talks about how Athena is appealing to Zeus for their help to make sure that he gets home. Okay. The other piece of information that you didn't know here is that while Telemachus leaves, the suitors who are considered evil plan to kill Telemachus when he gets back because they feel like he's just a pain um, in their rear ends. So then we go to book five. This was where we meet Calypso. Calypso is the sea nymph that is in love with Odysseus because she has been stuck on her island for years and years and years all alone. She has a bunch of other women that are on the island that are like her servants. They haven't seen a man in like forever long. So when Odysseus arrives on her shores, they're all happy and giddy. Um, if you read through this, you find out that Hermes arrives to Calypso, which is what we read in book one, and she gives him in. He gives her the orders from Zeus that she needs to let Odysseus go. She's very upset. Okay, they actually describe her as the mistress of the isle. That's the epithet that was used right over here. And there was obviously an epic simile describing how Hermes um, swoops down like a gull, like he like the seagull, like he can swim very close to the ocean. Um, the island is absolutely beautiful, and even though Odysseus has been on the island for 7 out of the 10 years that it takes him to get home. He's been there for 7, remember? Um, he every day he cries and every day he longs to go home. So, after Hermes tells Calypso she's got to let him go, she goes to Odysseus and tells him this. Uh, and um, we kind of realize that Odysseus and Calypso had a romantic relationship. It was definitely physical. So being on this island for 7 years, like eventually they had an intimate relationship with each other. All right. So then when she talks to Odysseus here, she tries to convince him to stay, and she tells him that she will make him immortal and he can stay with her, and she's a goddess, and there's no way that this human mortal Penelope is more beautiful than her. And so he's a strategist, he's very cunning and smart with his words, and he tells her like, listen, you are the most beautiful, my wife could never compare to her, but I still miss my wife, I still miss my home. So he kind of um, gets her to feel bad, which shows us that he really does love his wife. Okay, so Calypso helps him build a raft. He goes out to sea for 17 days, and then 3 more days he deals with some storms. So he's out at sea for like 20 days. And obviously, that's because Poseidon is against him because he hurts his son's eye. So that's kind of the end of book five. Now, you watch the video on book nine. So this is where things change. Book nine is actually the beginning of the wanderings of Odysseus. So I need you to think of that timeline, okay? So Odysseus finished fighting in the Trojan War. That was 10 years that war took. When he leaves Troy to go back home, the first place he goes to is the Cyclops Island. So that's book nine. So the books are kind of written in a different order. So this is book nine. This is the beginning. And in this, we saw that Odysseus lands on the island of the Cyclops, and they don't know that the Cyclops are there. They go into this cave, they start drinking wine, they start eating from like the Cyclops things, and all of a sudden the Cyclops arrives and they freak out. So they try to be friendly with the Cyclops, but the Cyclops doesn't care. He eats some of Odysseus's men. So then they try to think of a way to escape him. So they give him wine. The wine gets him drunk, the Cyclops. So then while the Cyclops sleeps, they come up with a plan. They sharpen this really large stick. They need the Cyclops to wake up and move the big rock that's blocking the doorway so that they can leave. So while the Cyclops is asleep, they sharpen that big piece of wood and they puncture his eye, his one and only eye. So the Cyclops wakes up and he's in a lot of pain, screaming and freaking out. And at that point is where he moves his rock. Now, rewind a little bit in the story, when the Cyclops asked Odysseus his name, Odysseus didn't say, "Oh, my name's Odysseus." One of his men almost like blew his spot and said, "Oh, this is the great," and he said, "No, no, no, my name is Nobody." Okay? And like he introduces himself like two separate names, like No and then Body. So he's like, "Oh, okay." But this is just as the Cyclops is getting drunk and falling asleep. So then he punctures the Cyclops' eye. The Cyclops stops freaking out. He opens up the rock, screaming for help with his brothers. And this is where it shows how smart Odysseus is, because now the Cyclops is outside screaming for the help of his other Cyclops brothers. All right, Polyphemus, the younger one, he's the baby. He's screaming out, like, "Help me, help me. Nobody has hurt me. Nobody has hurt me." So if you think about that line, like, it's funny because he sounds like a crazy person screaming out that nobody has hurt me. So you're really saying no one has done anything to you. And that's why Odysseus gave him his name as Nobody. So then Odysseus runs out with his men, they escape, they get on the ship, and he's almost clear of everything. Like the Cyclops even tries to throw a rock at him, but he misses because, again, he can't see. But just as he leaves and gets farther away from the Cyclops, he screams out of like a moment of pride, like, "Yeah, I got you." He tells him, "My real name is Odysseus," etc., etc. Because he says that, you'll hear at the end that the Cyclops asks his father, who is Poseidon, to avenge his death, his wound. So he says, "Father, avenge me." And that's where we realize that Poseidon, the god of sea, is now out to get Odysseus because of what he did. All right, that's an explanation of books 1, 5, and 9. Hopefully that helps you understand it better because we are going to have a test coming up soon.